Am I the a-hole for not giving my family a percentage of the family business? 36 male. My grandfather owned a business that has been in our family for generations. Everyone in our family has worked or helped out at the business. About 10 years ago, Papa decided to retire. He was starting to have issues with his health. The business was failing due to lack of help and financial issues. My father and his siblings are older and mostly retired, so they didn't want to be bothered with it, nor did any of their children, including my siblings. Said it would be too much work to get it back up and running properly. I took part of my savings and gave it to my grandfather as a down payment. There were a lot of naysayers, including my parents, siblings, and some other relatives saying how I should have let my grandfather sell the business, thinking he would never see the rest of the money I owed him. Basically, saying they didn't believe in me. But within the first 3 years, I had paid him off completely, which made a business mine. The business is now quite successful. I have 3 locations, and thankfully my papa got to see the success before he passed. It went from being I couldn't do it, to them asking what I was doing with my money because they didn't see a difference in how my family and I lived. So there was all kind of ridiculous speculations. My wife and I have always been humbled about our blessings and lived below our means because there was a bigger picture for us. We lived in a 2-bedroom house raising our family for over 15 years, driving beater cars. I had a home built from the ground up on a nice piece of land I had acquired. COVID hit and stalled everything, but it was finished at the beginning of this year. For the 4th of July, I invited a family down to celebrate. A lot of my family hadn't seen the home in person, so once they did, the talk of how much I was making came into place. Our home is now a 6-bedroom beauty with 4.5 baths that sits on over 60 acres of land and a private lake. I didn't entertain a conversation, but then my father brought up the suggestion of me giving a percentage to the family, siblings and cousins. I told him I was. My family, as in my kids. My siblings have nice careers, but they also have a lot of debt. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. Days ago, my mother mentions it again. I tell her that it wasn't up for discussion. She asks why wouldn't I want to share the success of my grandfather's business. I point out to her that while Papa may have started it, this was my business fair and square, and it's my choice and that it would never happen. Not liking my tone, she ran to my father and siblings, who have now been texting me like crazy, saying like I'm selfish, greedy, that I don't care about our family. I've ignored it, but I'm wondering if I'm in the wrong here. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Maybe for Christmas you can get them all copies of The Little Red Hen. This is a good one. Seriously, not the a-hole, but you may need to just cut them out of your life. Success makes the ones on the outside so thirsty. And by cut them off, I mean full stop. Cease and desist, blocking, and no contact. Nobody gets more viciously greedy than family. And great job in buying the business outright from your pop and then getting back on its feet. That was 100% you and 0% them, so that's the only percentage they deserve. Not the a-hole. You bought the business from your grandpa with your own money. And all the money and effort that went into it were your own, not your family's. They aren't entitled to money from a business that never contributed to. Exactly. If a stranger had bought the business and made it successful, they wouldn't be asking them for a piece of it. It's absurd. Not the a-hole. It's not their business. You purchased the business, renovated it. They don't get to demand a slice of the cake after you made a cake, just because the flour that you bought fair and square was owned by Papa once upon a time. Edit. Don't forget to get your affairs in full order, because your relatives are the type of people to contest any wills and whatnot. There really isn't a leg for anyone to stand on here if the OP purchased and fully repaid his grandfather for the business. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for making my 13-year-old niece return the birthday presents I bought for her because she was giving me attitude? 43 female, I have been very involved in my niece, 13 female, Scarlett's life. I frequently visit my sister and brother-in-law and often have auntie days with Scarlett, her sister, and my own kids. Scarlett is beautiful, creative, and clever girl, but she unfortunately can have an entitled attitude. Her parents are middle class. My sister works part-time while my brother-in-law is a magnet school principal. We explained to Scarlett that she's not going to get everything she wants in life, but we will always make sure she has whatever she needs. Scarlett isn't the only one who gets told no, as this applies to every child in our family. Scarlett still believes that because certain kids at her school have more money than her, she should always get expensive things too. She also has an attitude that because my partner and I make more money, we should buy pricey things for her. My sister and brother-in-law just continue to enforce boundaries and say they are waiting for when Scarlett matures. Scarlett's birthday is in a week. We will be on vacation on the actual day. So 2 days ago, I treated Scarlett to a mall trip. We had a spa day, got lunch, then we're about to head home when Scarlett said she wanted to go to the Apple store. Scarlett showed me one of the MacBook Air laptops and told me she wanted it. I asked if the Chromebook I got for her school was broken. She said it worked, but a girl in her class had a MacBook Air, so she wanted one too. I explained to Scarlett that if she were willing to wait until Christmas, I could try to find one on sale, but I couldn't afford it at the current price. Scarlett began to throw a tantrum because my son has a laptop that's over $2,000. A laptop I got second-hand, in which my son has used for over 8 years. I explained this to her, but Scarlett continued her tantrum, calling me a greedy witch. I firmly told her, Scarlett, if you do not stop this behavior right now, I will return your other gifts and you will get nothing from me. Scarlett continued to use profanity towards me, so I told her, that's it. We walked back to all the stores and returned everything. Glittery phone case, jewelry, stuffed animals, everything. The only thing I did not return was a book, but I kept it and told Scarlett I will hold on to it until I feel she has learned to be grateful. Scarlett whined at the car about not getting the things, and I told her, Scarlett, if you had been grateful, you would have gotten all those things, but you weren't, and now you have nothing for me. Many kids' families can't even afford food. I want you to really think about all the things you have and learn to be grateful. My sister and brother-in-law agreed with my actions, but my brother-in-law's parents say I was cruel to take birthday presents from a child, and they would be rebuying Scarlett the gifts I returned. I don't believe in rewarding bad behavior, and Scarlett will never be content until she learns to be grateful. Am I the a-hole? Okay, I was ready to be mad at you, but after reading this, I'm not. She's 13. You gave her a clear warning, explained the consequence, and gave her time to change her actions. She didn't, so you followed through with the consequence. I'd say that's reasonable. Not the a-hole. Yeah, this is just solid parenting. Or anting, or whatever. Not the a-hole. You gave her a very needed lesson. It's a shame her parents hadn't done it already. Not the a-hole. Sounds like parents are trying. The in-laws buying all the returned stuff points towards the root problem. Yep, so now if she can't get mom/dad/auntie to buy something, she'll just run to grandma and grandpa. Not the a-hole. She called you a greedy witch. If I had ever spoken to any adult like that at her age, I would have probably been grounded for a year. Not sure if she has always used profanity with adults when she's angry, but her behavior needs to be checked before she does it to someone that does not care for her the way you do, like a school teacher or classmate, and get suspended. You were right to return her birthday gifts, because bad behavior should never be rewarded. Returning them was the consequence of her actions. No joke. If my kid got taken out for their birthday and they pulled a stunt like this kid did, they wouldn't get a birthday celebration, period. It would be a hard, tough lesson to learn, but respect and gratitude is an extremely important thing to learn. It's honestly nuts that a 13-year-old is acting that way. Next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my sister and her husband in the rain? My girlfriend, Emily, is a food content creator. She loves what she does and her food is always tasty. If she decided to open a restaurant, she would always be fully booked. She does not do professional catering, but she likes to prepare food for friends and family. A little context. A few weeks ago, my sister Paige wanted to host a dinner party for her friends and family. 8 guests. She asked Emily to help her design an elaborate course menu. Eventually, this turned into Paige hiring Emily for a night to prepare and cook all the meals. Paige paid half of the agreed amount and promised to pay the remaining balance by a certain date. Emily spent days prepping, cooking, cleaning, etc. to make sure the dinner was perfect. She spent the entire day at their house prepping, and she also helped Paige clean the house in preparation for the guests. At first, she says that she was overwhelmed, but nothing she couldn't handle. She was alone working in the kitchen. The guests arrived almost 2 hours earlier than Emily was expecting. And according to Emily, my brother-in-law, sister's husband, started to brag about their new exotic maid that they hired because of this event. He went on mentioning how hard it was to understand their maid because of her accent or how obedient she is. My sister lives in an open-plan style house, so Emily could hear all of these things in the kitchen. Emily was incredibly uncomfortable the entire time, and as soon as she finished, she left. I asked Paige and my brother-in-law to apologize, but they refused. To make it worse, Paige has not paid Emily the rest of her promised money. Every time we call, text, or email, etc., she straight up ignores us. I assume they had blocked us on all social media messages, etc. It's gross, and I am so upset with them. A couple of days ago, Emily posted a new food-related video. It was very good and looked very tasty. About 2 hours later, my sister and her husband are outside my door, in the pouring rain, asking to come in. I was confused, but I assumed that maybe this was their way of apologizing. I did not let them in. I just opened the door a little. I was wrong. Paige mentioned how she saw Emily's post and wanted to come try it for herself. I was stunned. Not only was I disappointed in them for not apologizing or paying Emily, I was shocked by the ridiculousness of their thought process. They would show up for free food like nothing happened, ignoring the fact that Emily doesn't upload her content on the same day she makes it. I asked Paige or my brother-in-law to apologize, and when it was clear that they were making excuses, I said goodbye and shut the door in their face. They sat outside, with no umbrella or a rain jacket, for almost an hour, calling our names and spamming our doorbell. I got a call from my brother-in-law, demanding me to apologize because I got Paige sick. Emily thinks I may have been a bit too petty. Now, for the top comments. Not stay home. This is what I like to call mess around and find out. They were rude the whole way through. You should also take them to small claims court where they will be forced to pay up the remainder of what's owed, though you may want to go to a legal sub or a lawyer to see what you can do. I'm shocked he answered the door at all. Exotic maid indeed. Exotic maid that he can't even afford to pay. My sister and her husband talk so lowly of someone they can't seem to pay. Not stay home. You didn't leave them in the rain. They chose to stay in the rain to yell at you. They were perfectly able to leave and get out of the rain. They cannot blame you for their choices. As for Emily's payment, it might be necessary to take them to small claims court. That is if she thinks it is worth it. Yeah, exactly. They literally could have just left. What would have happened if I wasn't home? I'd really like to know what their thought process is. An hour in the rain? When they could have just left or not show up in the first place. Man, please update us if anything else happens. I wish nothing would happen, but judging by how they've acted so far, other funky things are bound to come up. Watch out for flying monkeys too. Maybe you want to make a preemptive attack prior to the next shenanigans. Not stay home. Your sister and brother-in-law are disgusting people. Personally, I'd 1. Reimburse Emily for the other half as she accepted the job because it was your sister. 2. Treat her to something special as a way to apologize for the treatment she endured. 3. Tell sister and brother-in-law the owed amount is now X dollars. The half they owed plus treat cost plus convenience fee, and that you are going no contact with them until they A. Pay X dollars, B. Apologize to Emily. 4. Tell parents about number 3. Now, for the last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my brother and his wife from my house? My wife, 31 female, and I, 30 male, had a baby 4 months ago. My wife has been suffering from PPD, and she's had a lot of breakdowns here and there, and it was just so heartbreaking to see. I decided to give her a day to herself and take care of the baby. So I took a small leave from work, gave her my card, and told her to do what she needs to do for herself. My brother, 35 male, and his wife, 34 female, came over the same day she was out for a visit and asked me where she was. I told them she was out doing her own things, and they asked why I was babysitting the baby. I told them it wasn't babysitting when it's my own child, and I was giving my wife some time to herself. My sister-in-law scoffed at me and told me she should be home like a good mom, and my brother laughed and agreed, saying that taking care of a baby is easy. I got angry at him and told him, of course it'd be easy for you, because you live with mom, so you could just dump the baby on her. He and his wife got angry and started yelling at me, so I kicked them out and told them to never come back unless they apologized. I told my wife about it, and she was sad that I fought with my brother because of her, but I reassured her that I didn't care because she was important. I got a call from my mom saying she agreed with me, but told me I was a bit harsh for what I said to him, and I can't help but feel like an a-hole for that. Am I the a-hole? You weren't the a-hole the moment they said the word babysitting. Not the a-hole. Agreed. Brother is 100% the a-hole. I always find it telling, sad, and funny that the people who consider taking care of your own children to be babysitting so often turn out to be the ones who don't actually parent their own kids. Whether it's a nanny, grandparents, or siblings, they always seem to find a way to dump their kids in someone else, and then have the gall to look down on those who actually spend time with their kids. I was out the other night and someone asked me if my husband was babysitting my 4-year-old. I said, babysitting? You do know he's the dad, right? It was so freaking awkward after that, but I hate these assumptions. Absolutely not day-ho. I hope his wife is being supported as she should. Not day-ho. You didn't fight with your brother because of your wife. You fought with your brother because he's an a-hole. Everything that came out of those people's mouths was appalling. What a-holes? People like that deserve the harsh truth. Otherwise, they remain obliviously and willfully ignorant. OP, please tell your wife that lots of people are wishing her well. I am, at least. She clearly has love and support at home, so I have faith things will get better. You two sound like a good team. Not day-ho. Not day-ho. You literally spoke the truth. I wish my husband was so understanding. I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope one day you can understand what you go through. Not going to happen. I got my tubes tied, cut and burned so I won't have any more children. But thank you for being an actual parent when so many refuse to. Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I, 28 male, have been married to my wife, 28 female, for 7 years. And although that was very young to get married, we had been together since year 8 of secondary school. And it's safe to say I think she's the one. Now, I come from a white family in Britain, whereas she comes from a black family and she's dark-skinned. My family never were racist towards her and were immediately accepting. And her and my mother are pretty much best friends. And last year, we gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. 3 years ago, though, my twin sister got a new boyfriend, 30 male. Me and him didn't have any problems as we hardly ever spoke, but he seemed nice enough. So nice, in fact, that I helped him and my sister do the letters for their wedding. When we were starting, I checked through the guest list and after a quick skim through, I noticed my wife's name wasn't on there. I questioned my sister about it and she directed me to her fiancé. He stated that he didn't think it would be appropriate. I asked him what he meant, and he said that it wouldn't really seem right for us to mix and she would be the only blackie there. I had a total outrage at this and told my sister to cross off my name because if my wife doesn't go, I don't go. And I left her house and began to drive back to mine. I told my wife what he said, and she said I should just go to not stir up any family fights. But I told her that she was family now, and if she doesn't go, then I don't either. This whole argument has caused my family to pick sides, with my mom and dad being on mine, but with most being on my sister's. Lots of family members have called me up and told me to just come, and I decided to ask my brother-in-law if he was going to change his mind, and he put his foot down and said no. My sister now is heartbroken because our parents aren't going, nor our grandparents, but she still refuses to invite my wife. I am really torn because I want to make my family happy, but then again, my wife is my family. So am I the a-hole? Edit. Seen a lot of people saying about invites. Even if I was invited, I would not go. I just want my family to apologize to my wife. I explained to people who are on her side my reasoning, and as it turns out, the fiancé lied to them and told them that me and him had an argument. After I explained to them, about half of the people still attending announced that they weren't. Now for the top comments before reading the mini update. Not the a-hole. Your sister should be upset that she's marrying a racist, not that you don't support the union. Considering she's alright with the issue, I'm less worried for her sake that she's marrying someone like that. Sounds like she's one too. Oh, she is. Lay down with bigots and you're a bigot. It's that simple. They should have been sisters hill to die on. Instead, she sacrificed her sibling and parents on it. Your wife is more family than he will ever be. The fact your sister would even marry him after that comment is absolutely disgusting. I'd go no contact with both of them. They don't deserve any of you in their life. You're absolutely not the a-hole and do not go under any circumstances. I'm glad you defended your wife against such blatant racism, and I'm truly disgusted with your sister. Really tell sis she ain't family no more. Not the a-hole, of course. You're doing the right thing. You need to have your wife's back and by extension your son's. If you knuckle under now, there's going to be even more and more blatant stupid crap from your brother-in-law, and possibly more of the family if they see him getting away with it. Now for the update. Great news, everybody. The fiancé has been in a way banished from the family after everybody learned why I wasn't attending. I have also cut most ties with my sister. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not standing up for my wife when my uncle made a gold digger joke because what she said mortified me? I haven't seen my mom in a year. Last year, there was a big fight between me, my wife, and my mother about how Christmas would work and who would host. And that's when my mom decided she didn't want to see me anymore. It sucks, but I'm not going to beg her. However, my wife and I have a disagreement regarding our 1.5-year-old son. She thinks my mom is a horrid person for not sending him gifts, cards, asking for pictures. I think if my mom actually wants no contact, she's doing the respectful thing. Also, we both agree she wouldn't be allowed to see him, so I don't really get what my wife wants. I have asked her to not badmouth my mom to any of my family. I want to preserve the few relationships I have left. And it is honestly embarrassing. My grandparents gave my mom zero help with me because not their kid, not their problem. And that was with them being fairly close to my mom. So I can't imagine how they would react to hearing my wife's views on this. Recently, we ran into my uncle at my grandparents' house. It was awkward as I know that the dude hates me and is 100% on my mom's team. But we were all guilted into staying for lunch. My grandmother was trying to get my uncle to come for Thanksgiving, and he got pissy and said no, and that she knows he spent all holidays with my mom. My wife then asked how my mom was, and I felt myself cringe. My uncle said she's great. My wife replied, "We wouldn't know as she never sends any gifts for our son, so maybe she's dead." I gave her a look begging her to stop, while my uncle's wife just burst out laughing. My uncle asked if she was kidding, or if she really thought my mom was going to buy gifts for a child she did not know. My wife went on a rant about how she would do anything to have any amount of contact with our future grandchildren. My uncle laughed and said, "Wow, such a gold digger, you put my ex to shame." My wife immediately looked like she was going to cry, but I just couldn't bring myself to say anything. I was mortified, and I'd begged her not to bring up the gift thing. She asked if I was going to defend her. I said no, and she ran out of the room. We left and she is furious with me. She says I betrayed her and that my mom is going to laugh when she hears of this. I told her that she humiliated me and I had begged her to stop with the gifts. Not a-hole. Your wife making a big deal about not getting gifts from someone who is no contact with you is absurd and need not be defended. We all know if his mom did send gifts or request photos, wife would refuse them and probably rant about how horrible his mom is to want access to the kids but not them. Everyone sucks here. Not because he didn't defend her, but I have a feeling there's a good reason your mom and uncle want nothing to do with you. I would assume it's more to do with the wife than with him. Although I guess it still makes him an a-hole to bring a toxic person into his family and let her wreak havoc. His wife wanted to host Christmas, so he invited his mom because he knew no one else would come if his mom hosted her normal Christmas at the same time. And this is how mom replied. My wife really wanted to host Christmas, but no one would come if my mom hosted an alternative. So I asked my mom to come and she went insane, accusing me of wanting her to be martyr, and said to put my wife first but don't let her put her husband first. She was screaming about how her needs are just as important as my wife's. And why should her husband be forced to spend Christmas with us? She said she regrets having me and doesn't want to see me again. Everyone sucks here because you all sound like awful people. That's really all there is to it. I could try to get into details, but really, you all suck. Try to bring up your kid to be better. Good luck with that. Yeah, every single person in this story needs a timeout, a nap, and a snack. Not a-hole. Why is your wife so desperate for gifts from someone she's no contact with? She opened the door to everything that happened after asking about your mom, so she needs to live with it. How exactly does she want you to defend the indefensible? I think what the wife wants is for the mom to come begging to spend time with the kids and try bribing with gifts. She already said they're not going to allow the mom to see the kids, so I think she wanted the mom to ask so she can say no. Next story. Am I the a-hole for backing out of going to my mother-in-law's house for Thanksgiving after I overheard her conversation with my husband? My brother, 19, passed away in a motorcycle accident a month ago. It was so devastating. It's also fresh, and grief has been heavy on me. But I try to carry on with my life and visit the family and my in-laws. I basically do my best not to miss an event, especially with my in-laws. My husband and I were invited to Thanksgiving by mother-in-law. I was planning to go. I even went shopping for a dress, which is hard to do due to grief, but I kept it together. Last night, we were at her house and I excused myself to the bathroom while she and my husband and his dad were talking. I came back and heard her ask why I didn't turn her Thanksgiving invitation down. I was puzzled. I decided to stop and listen more. My husband said that it was my mother-in-law's fault she invited me, but she said that she did it out of courtesy and that she didn't think I'd accept the invite. She said that now I'll potentially ruin the celebration with my negative vibe and will make things awkward for everybody because of my brother's passing. I was stunned. My husband replied saying that I do tend to get emotional usually. Now it's worse that there's death in the family. I was so upset I didn't know whether I should go home or pretend to not have heard this. I stayed quiet till we went home. There, I told him I won't be going to spend Thanksgiving with his mother and family. He asked why and started pressuring me to talk. I told him about a conversation he had with mother-in-law, and he got upset and accused me of stirring drama by snooping and eavesdropping on conversations that I wasn't part of. We got into a massive argument about it, and he kept saying that I was being too sensitive and unreasonable. His mom tried to call then texted about me not hearing their conversation properly, and that there was a huge misunderstanding. Now she's saying the guests will ask about me if I'm not there and there's going to be issues. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Get a divorce ASAP. This right here. OP is grieving, and all the in-laws are thinking about is the negative energy. Grieving is not negative energy. It is pain and hurt someone feels, and it was made so much worse by the husband and mother-in-law. OP, don't be with someone who can't support you. Someone who scolds you for eavesdropping, but who had the audacity to talk poorly about his wife behind her back and not protecting her. He is the issue. I hope OP has a safe place to go and spends the time there while looking for a divorce attorney. Marriage is about the good and the bad. What in the world? I am so sorry for your loss, first off. But they're all a-holes, obviously. The mother-in-law is manipulating and gaslighting you at an incredibly vulnerable time for you. To think that what you heard is incorrect, and your own husband, the one who has seen you lose your brother, witnessed your very valid grief, and now has the audacity to turn the blame to you because how dare you be too emotional and make a dramatic situation out of the death of your brother? I'm not going to say you need to dump that family, but you need to seriously think about how uncomfortable they are simply by your grieving. Instead of comforting you in a devastating time and making things easier for you, having compassion and empathy, they've decided to do the opposite. They are emotionally inept. And I dare say this is the first blaring red flag you've seen. Also, the fact that mother-in-law is trying to change the script in your head because you weren't supposed to hear what she said is pitiful. She obviously doesn't want you to think lowly of her, but that ship has sailed. Integrity is what we do when no one is looking or hearing, and this family has no integrity. I hope you find the support you deserve in this horrific time. I cannot imagine the grief you are experiencing, and this now has just made it all so much worse. Good luck. Not the a-hole by any stretch. Your husband and his family are incredibly insensitive. You have a negative vibe? Seriously? Were you supposed to just get over this in 2 days? It's not like a goldfish died. He describes OP as usually being emotional for him in a negative context, which can carry unsavory undertones. OP needs to reevaluate whether she's best off staying in this marriage or getting out of it. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my father that he was not a good father to his daughters? The incident that sparked this is very small, but there is quite a bit of a background. A few days ago, I, 30 female, was leaving our small town to go to a metro city hospital for a minor procedure. My father, 58 male, came to pick me up and drop me off at the airport. He was using my car while I was gone. He is very fit and strong, and I am a small woman. I was struggling with my luggage, and he knew that pre-operation I should not lift extra weights, but he did not offer to help. He does these things often. In contrast, when my sister-in-law carries even a small bag of groceries, he runs to help. I was put off, but did not say anything. My brother did the same thing again yesterday. He still helps his wife and female friends, but while he has relied on my effective labor for years, he has never paid anything back. I have learned to be very independent as a result, but being vulnerable pre- and post-op made me reflect on this. Of course, this goes back to our entire childhood. My father worked less than my mom, but never helped with any chores or childcare. Instead, he always gave her work, dinner parties, house guests, etc. He was abusive to my mother when she protested, and at times to me and my sister. He is the nice guy for outsiders and has a respectful life. I remember my mom being completely submissive until I was 7 or 8, but after a while, she started fighting back, and she became a difficult person, abusive back and words with him and often being short-tempered with us. While I do not justify what she did, she has apologized profusely in both words and practical ways. My father has acknowledged that he mistreated my mom and has tried to make amends, but he has consistently denied any mistreatment to my sister and I. They are still together, but the dynamic has shifted. Last night was one of those nights. I was not there but have seen it play out. My father was passive-aggressive for days, until my mother started arguing. Their argument turned into a full-blown one. Today, my brother, who had never endured my dad's antics, was sarcastic about my mom being a tyrant. I responded soberly to him that the women in our family have learned to demand to be treated with basic respect because asking nicely has not borne fruit. But I mentioned the luggage incident as a minor example of what our mother endured for years. My brother responded that if this bothered me, I lack emotional intelligence. That hurt. A little later, my father called and asked if he could talk to me. I responded with, "No, you cannot until you become a better father to my sister and I. Until you show to your son that he cannot call me emotionally and intelligent for expecting a strong man, whom I have consistently served, to lift my heavy-for-me luggage in return." My father started crying and said that he knows he was wrong but he has excuses, and I told him that sorry but doesn't cut it anymore. My brother is calling me the a-hole for not having a compassionate response. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. When your brother called you emotionally unintelligent, he meant to call you difficult to subdue. It seems that the patriarchy in your family is finally being called to justice, so to speak, and they don't like finding themselves on the other end of the stick. They're sorry they got caught, not that they were horrible. If your mom hadn't developed an aggressive stance toward your father, things would be the same to this day, and he wouldn't feel remorse as long as she kept playing the role he envisioned for her, you and your sister. Your brother's comment was daft, and shows clearly as water that he's grown to be his father's son and would continue to disrespect the women in his life if they let him. You are entitled to express your feelings. That is very much what I responded. They just claim their point of view with such certainty and indignation that it makes me wonder. They're grasping at straws not to be outed as the horrible people they are/were. You're not falling for it because you're emotionally intelligent as it seems. So they, your brother in this instance, tried to insult you into silence, in my opinion. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry your dad is like this, and it appears your brother is following the same pattern. I highly recommend the book Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. It's eye-opening, and if your dad is actually changing in any way, he might recognize himself. Am I the a-hole for not splitting the proceeds of the sale of our parents' house? When my mom died, back in 2018, she left me and my siblings a decent chunk of money and her house. My siblings wanted to sell the house and split the money, but I wanted to keep the house. It's a unique property with a pretty big lot in the middle of the city. The house is 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. There is a pretty awesome deck, and most importantly, not in an HOA. I had some sentimental attachment to it, but mostly I thought the house was better for my situation than a pile of cash. So I asked them if I could buy them out, and they were pretty excited about the idea. The house would stay in the family and they still get their cash. We got it appraised, hired an attorney, and went through with it. My portion of the inheritance and a chunk of my own savings were enough to cover their shares. As soon as it was done, me and my then fiancé moved in. We saved a bunch on rent. The house was paid off, location was great, and we were really happy with the house. My brother burned through the cash in 2 years. He fancied himself an influencer. He bought a Maserati for cash, went to expensive nightclubs, vacationed in exotic places. Good for him, but money's gone. My sister and her husband bought a really expensive boat. I guess that's better. They did use it pretty often, and my nephews love it. But from what I understand, her portion of the money's gone too. I got married and we had a son. We would host my siblings on holidays and at Christmas before COVID, and I started to notice it. They were making snide comments about how much the house must be worth now. Since 2018, we had an influx of people to my city. It's growing rapidly, and the price of the house essentially tripled. We've had a bunch of all-cash offers on the house when we weren't thinking of selling. But this year, we decided to move. My wife was pregnant again, and we were going to relocate closer to her family. I talked to my boss, and he said the place we were moving to had an office I could commute to on the days I work in the office. So we put the house on the market, and it sold pretty quickly, and that's when the trouble started. Both of my siblings think that I owe it to them to split the profit I made, because it's only fair. We were in the middle of a move-in house hunting in a new place, so I didn't really have time to go on about this. Well, it's been months, and they have not stopped bothering about how I cheated them out of a portion of their inheritance, and I was being really selfish. They point out that the process of me buying them out was pretty smooth. We didn't have any problems or hiccups, and they did me a favor by not kicking up a fuss. Now they want to split the profit, because it was their house too. This has become really toxic, and most of my family's on their side. My mom's sister says it would have broken her heart to see her kids fight like this, and I should just split the money with my siblings. My dad's sister thinks I should buy them off so they shut up. Am I the a-hole for refusing to split the money? Not the a-hole. The fact that they didn't understand that you can either invest or spend an inheritance is not your problem. They chose to spend their inheritance, while you chose to invest yours. Now that they've pissed theirs away, it's on them. One squandered it on an expensive car that lost value the moment it came off the lot. The other wasted it away on a floating money pit. If Opie gave them more money, you can guess they will squander it. Opie made a fair deal, not the a-hole. With those types of investments, they'd still be broke, even if they had all sold the house to begin with. Not the a-hole. It's not your fault that the house is worth more now than when you bought out your siblings. I'd point out that all three of you invested your inheritance in different ways, and yours is the only one that paid off financially. Personally, I'd be drawing up a list of all the costs maintaining the house, taxes, etc., including renovations or new appliances/furniture being left, and tell the siblings that if they are willing to pay for 1/3 each of that, then they can have a split of the profit. However, only after what you would have gotten selling the house in 2018 was taken off. If they want the profit from the house, then they can split the cost of getting/keeping the house in good shape the past 5 years so that it would be worth the amount. It's not even worth entertaining that idea. It'll make them feel like they are justified in wanting something from the house. Opie bought them out, and if the house had turned into a money pit and Opie had lost money on it, they would certainly not be offering him money to cover his losses. They wanted to sell the house and split the money. They effectively did that, except that the house was bought by Opie and not some stranger. Opie does not owe them absolutely anything. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not allowing my friend to move with me and my children? I am a 32-year-old widow to 3 young children. We live in a small but cute 3-bedroom that is too small for us, but due to cost of living and COVID, we ended up renting the home longer than originally expected. The house has a renovated garage-type space in the back, and about 6 months ago, my friend Trish asked if she could stay because she had nowhere to go with her 2 kids. I told her that's fine, but that I would not be renewing my lease because I am purchasing a home. Trish has not saved any money nor gotten a job. I reminded her last week that I would start putting in offers on homes this week. We put in an offer this past Friday and found out today that I was accepted. I let Trish know that if things went well, we would be leaving in 30 to 45 days. She asked me about the house and then said that the house doesn't have a space for her and her kids, but otherwise it was perfect. I thought she was joking and said that once we get settled, we will figure out something for sleepovers with the kids. Trish seemed totally taken off guard. She said that she didn't think I was really going to move without her and that she had nowhere to go and she would be homeless. She called her sister, and her sister said no, she can't stay because their grandmother already lives there and there is no more space. Trish is now freaking out and saying that we've all turned our back on her. Her parents don't have their own place, nor do their grandparents. I recommended income-based housing and a job, but she said she doesn't want to put her kids in daycare. She says that I have more than enough money to help her and still buy a house. I work 2 jobs and have busted my butt to buy this house, and have enough money for furniture and everything to be the way I want. So I basically told her I can't help her, and the lights will be out on September 15th. Am I the a-hole for leaving her with nowhere to go? Not the a-hole. You gave her 6 months. She is not working and she is not planning to work. Her plan is to exploit you. That's the part that's outrageous to me. You work 2 jobs, and she apparently feels that it's fine for you to support her joblessness? She wants you to enable her to be a stay-at-home mom. She's basically using OP as a substitute partner. This is gonna continue until OP kicks her out, or she finds another person to bankroll her. Trish is not your friend. She is angling to be your dependent, trailing her 2 kids with her. I wouldn't let her have your new address if you haven't already given it. I'd be very careful about allowing her entry to your new home at all for that matter. Not the a-hole, and no sleepovers for the kids. She'll try to leave them with you or stay herself. Watch out for all males. Make sure there's nothing with her name coming to your new address. She might try to claim residency. She doesn't have the address for the new house. I also wasn't planning sleepovers, but didn't want to hurt her feelings. The new house is gated and you have to show ID to get in. My sister told me to tell security about her. Your sister is a wise woman. Don't stress about this though. Moving house is stressful enough. It's a shame that you've stumbled onto a take-a-mile person posing as a friend, but most people aren't like her. She'll find a new person to try and bleed dry soon, and you'll be her new sob story. Because it's definitely not her fault she has no home, and no one left who will support her. Congratulations on achieving this awesome-sounding new home for you and your children. Enjoy the fruits of your labors. Next story. Am I the a-hole for retiring and moving to South America like every single person in my family knew I planned to do since I was 16? I'm male 55, just pulled the pin on my retirement. I put in 33 years of work and I'm done. I bought property in South America 12 years ago, and I have been building our retirement home down there. I have dual citizenship, so I can own property without it being a hassle. The house was designed to be perfect for us. We have a pool, a small house for the caretaker/gardener, and 34 different fruit trees. The bathroom is up to North American standards, and the showers grab bars and stuff already built in for when I'm old. Everything is on one level, so there are no stairs. My wife helped by making suggestions to the designs of the house and by taking care of decorating it. We have been vacationing there for 8 years now, and renting it out when we aren't there for some extra money. We have hosted friends and family there, both with us there and on their own. My wife has now decided that she doesn't want to live there for 7 months of the year. We have grandkids now, and she wants to be more involved in their lives. I love my kids and grandkids, and my parents also live up here. But I am done with winter. If I never see snow again, it will be too soon. The house has guest rooms and flights are cheap. If they want to see me in the winter, they are all welcome to come down. Plus, I will be back for 5 months in the summer to do some contract work, and I will see everyone then. My wife said she didn't want to go down this winter, and that is absolutely her right. I booked my flight for September, and she asked me about the expense on the credit card. I said I was leaving for the winter like I had told everyone I was planning to do. This is when she said that she didn't want to go this winter, actually meant she didn't want us to go this winter. I said that I was going, and that I would see her in the spring unless she changed her mind and came down. Now her, my parents and my kids are bugging me about leaving her alone for the winter, but it is 100% her choice. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You can't force her to live there, but you can't force you to live where you don't like either. If I never see snow again, it will be too soon. Same here. I hate snow. After one particularly bad winter, I vowed to be somewhere warm by the next winter. It started an entirely different life path for me. OP, if you aren't happy in the snow and cold, and the short depressing days, then you don't need to be there. Not the a-hole. This is such an AITA response where everyone is an island. Married people make compromises for each other. There is a middle ground where they spend 3 of the worst winter months in South America together, and then OP heads back alone for a couple of weeks here and there throughout the year. People are allowed to change their minds about where they want to live long term. Wife isn't an aunt because she became more attached to her grandkids than she anticipated. Yeesh. When wife said she didn't want to be away 7 months anymore, there has to be a big discussion, and they both have to give a little. To just shrug like he is fine with it, and then book flights without saying anything is a huge a-hole move. The members of this board must be deeply lonely or hate their spouses, since the majority thinks this is a-okay. These two might as well divorce if OP is happy to spend 7 months of the year away from his wife and doesn't care about her wishes. While I agree about it being a discussion that needed to happen, literally everything you say here also applies to the wife who is not compromising either. Also, a 7-year plan of retirement isn't something you back out of suddenly. This has been OP's life goal for literally their whole marriage, and it is pretty clear that was well communicated, given the buying, vacationing, and prepping for this every part of his life. She's entitled to change her mind, but frankly, this is a pretty huge slap in the face for him. It's sort of akin to someone working toward getting into law school with their partner's support, and when they're finally accepted, the partner is saying they actually didn't want to relocate now. Sure, fine, but that's relationship-breaking preference. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law she shouldn't have married my brother if she wanted for her child to have a big brother? Sister-in-law and my brother got married 3 years ago and now have a 2-month-old daughter together. My brother has a son, Jax, 18, who was raised by his maternal grandparents from the age of 5 after his mom passed away. My brother was not part of Jax's life. I was. I have made an effort to be a big part of his life. I see him as much as possible. He has spent the night at my house several times. He's my nephew, and I was never going to abandon him the way my brother did. Sister-in-law asked me to give her Jax's contact info when she was pregnant, so she could tell him he was going to have a little sister. I told her that Jax did not want her or his dad to have the contact info, and he already knew she was pregnant. She asked how, and I told her I'd let him know, because he had always wanted to know if my brother or someone else in my brother's life might try to reach out to him. He's not interested. He's felt that way for years, and I respect that. Having a half-sibling coming into the world means nothing to him. As far as he's concerned, he will always be an only child because he only has one parent, his mom. Sister-in-law decided to track Jax down on social media before her baby's shower to invite him. He never replied and he didn't show, which I knew beforehand. Sister-in-law was upset about it and vented to me. I mostly ignored her. It was after my niece was born that the incident in question happened. Sister-in-law reached out to Jax again and was blocked and reported for harassment. She was upset and said it wasn't fair Jax was taking it out on her daughter and that she deserves to have her big brother in her life, despite my brother's mistakes in letting him be out of his life. She was getting very blamey toward Jax, and I did not want to hear it. I told her if she had wanted her child to have a big brother, then she shouldn't have married a deadbeat dad. She shouldn't have married my brother, because they have zero right to expect Jax to want anything to do with any of them. Sister-in-law countered that Jax wanted me in his life, and I told her I was there from day one and never let my brother's actions take me out of his life. I showed up when my brother didn't, and I stayed friendly with his grandparents and he saw that. I told her that she didn't get to demand anything from him when she knowingly married my brother. Sister-in-law said I was blaming her for no reason, and I should be more understanding that as a mom she wants the best for her kid. Am I the a-hole for what I said to her? As a mom she wants the best for her kid, then she shouldn't have married a deadbeat dad, not the a-hole OP. The entitlement is strong with his sister-in-law. What's really sad is she apparently didn't care about meeting Jax and brushed aside the warning that she was dating a deadbeat till her baby was involved. Was this really only about roping a teenager who could be made to babysit because she's your sister? She said it herself. She wants what is best for her kid. Jax isn't hers and is treating him like a commodity. She isn't respecting him or thinking of him. You're not the a-hole for supporting your nephew, as it's especially clear this woman is as much a piece of work as her brother. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law clearly doesn't care about Jax for his feelings. How does she think it would make him feel to see his dad, who abandoned him, acting like a dad to their daughter? She wants her daughter to know her big brother? Too bad. Her husband burned that bridge, and she clearly doesn't actually care enough to repair it. She wants to contact Jax for her own selfish reasons, not actually for family. Good job supporting your nephew and showing him that he's loved and wasn't completely forgotten and abandoned by his father's family. Keep defending and supporting him. He clearly needs you.